At some point today, or yesterday, or sometime in the last few weeks, you cried. Maybe you know exactly when. Maybe it crept up on you without warning. A song, a memory, a moment that hit differently than you expected. You felt something rise in your chest, your throat tightened, and then your eyes filled with liquid and spilled over. You didn't decide to do it. It just happened. And here's the thing almost nobody ever stops to ask. Why? Not why emotionally, why biologically. Why does the human body respond to sadness or joy or overwhelm by leaking fluid from the eyes? No other animal on Earth does this. Not chimpanzees, not elephants, not dogs, not wolves. Despite millions of years of shared evolutionary history, despite brains and emotions and social bonds that in some cases rival our own, not a single other creature on this planet sheds emotional tears the way you do. You are the only one. And the reason why is one of the strangest, most contested, most revealing mysteries in all of human science. Start with what a tear actually is. Most people think of tears as one thing. They are not. Your body produces 3 completely different types of tears, and they serve 3 completely different functions. The first type is basal tears. These are the tears your eyes produce constantly, every second of every day, whether you feel anything or not. They coat your cornea in a thin protective film, keeping the surface of your eye lubricated and clear. Without them, your vision would blur, and your eyes would be destroyed within hours. You are always crying, technically. You just don't notice. The second type is reflex tears. These are triggered by physical irritation, smoke, dust, onions, a stray eyelash. They flood the eye to wash out the irritant. Fast, involuntary, purely mechanical. And the third type, the one that makes humans unique, is emotional tears. Tears triggered not by anything physical, not by irritation or dryness, but by what you feel, by the unbearable weight of a moment that means something. Biochemist William Frey spent years studying the chemistry of emotional tears and discovered something remarkable. Emotional tears are chemically different from reflex tears. They contain higher concentrations of stress hormones, including adrenocorticotropic hormone, one of the key chemicals your body produces under emotional stress, as well as leucine and kephalin, a natural painkiller. Emotional tears, Frey argued, are not just a byproduct of feeling something. They are a release mechanism. Your body is physically flushing stress chemicals out through your eyes. When you cry, you are not just expressing emotion. You are chemically regulating yourself. The feeling of relief after a good cry is not psychological. It is biochemical. Your body just purged something it needed to get rid of. But that still does not answer the deeper question. Why tears? Why the eyes? And why only humans? Here's where the science becomes genuinely strange, because no one actually agrees on the answer. The evolution of emotional tears is one of the most debated questions in evolutionary biology, and the honest answer is that we do not have a definitive explanation. What we do have are several compelling theories, each revealing something different and true about what it means to be human. The first theory is the signal theory. Evolutionary psychologist Oren Hassan at Tel Aviv University has argued that emotional tears evolve primarily as a social signal. When you cry, your vision blurs, your face contorts, your body becomes visibly distressed in a way that is extremely difficult to fake. Hassan's argument is that tears evolved as an honest signal, a biological guarantee that the emotion you are expressing is real. In a social species where deception is always possible, where someone might pretend to be heard or frightened to gain sympathy or resources, tears provide a kind of authentication. They are hard to produce on demand. They come with physiological cost. They are therefore trustworthy in a way that words or even facial expressions are not. When you see someone cry, something in you responds differently than if they simply told you they were sad. Tears bypass your skepticism. They reach past your rational evaluation and land somewhere older and more certain. That response, Hassan argues, is the evolutionary point. Tears bond groups. They trigger care. They communicate need in a way that compels response. The second theory reaches even further back, to the ocean. Marine biologist Elaine Morgan spent decades developing what became known as the aquatic ape theory, a controversial but fascinating hypothesis that argues humans went through a semi-aquatic phase in their evolutionary history. A period spent wading, swimming, and living near water that shaped a remarkable number of distinctly human traits. Among them, our relatively hairless skin, our layer of subcutaneous fat, our descended larynx, our upright posture, and our ability to shed emotional tears. Marine mammals, seals, sea otters, manatees, produce tears in high volumes, believed to help manage salt balance in a marine environment. Morgan argued that the precursors to human emotional crying may have evolved during this aquatic phase as a mechanism for salt regulation that was later co-opted by the emotional brain. The theory remains contested. Many mainstream evolutionary biologists reject it, but it has never been fully disproved, and it connects dots that no other theory fully explains. The third theory is perhaps the most psychologically interesting. Developmental psychologist John Bowlby, who spent his career studying attachment and the bonds between parents and children, saw in emotional tears the echo of a very specific infant behavior. Newborn humans cry loudly and visibly to signal distress, to summon caregivers, to communicate need in the only way available to a creature with no language and no mobility. Bowlby's insight was that adult emotional crying may be a retained version of this infant signal, a behavior that begins in helplessness and stays with us because it continues to work. When you cry as an adult, you're doing something your nervous system learned in the first hours of life, broadcasting need in a way that triggers care from others. The particular vulnerability of tears, the way they soften your face, blur your eyes, make you look simultaneously more open and more fragile, may be precisely the point. You are briefly returning to a state where you cannot pretend to be fine, and something in the people around you responds to that ancient signal the same way a parent responds to an infant's cry. Think about what this means. Every time you cry in front of another person, you are showing them something true. You are making yourself temporarily vulnerable in one of the most honest ways a human body knows how. And something in both of you, in you and in the person witnessing it, responds to that honesty with a softening, a drawing together, a shift in the quality of attention. Tears in this reading are not weakness. They are one of the most sophisticated social technologies evolution has ever produced. But why only humans? This is the question that keeps researchers up at night. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, share 98.7% of our DNA. They form deep social bonds. They grieve their dead. They comfort one another. They have been observed in what appears to be profound emotional distress. And yet they do not shed emotional tears. They vocalize, they scream, they rock back and forth, but the eyes stay dry. Why? One answer may lie in the particular demands of human social life. Humans are uniquely dependent on long-range social bonding, on maintaining relationships across distance, across time, across circumstances that would strain or sever bonds in other species. Language helped, but language can lie. Language can perform. Language can say, "I'm fine," when nothing is fine. Tears cannot easily do this. They arrive without permission. They communicate something the speaker may not have chosen to share. In a species as socially complex and verbally sophisticated as humans, in a species where deception and performance are constant possibilities, an involuntary, hard-to-fake signal of a genuine internal state may have enormous survival value. The person in your group who cries when they are truly overwhelmed is giving you information you cannot get any other way. And the group that responds to that information, that offers care and support in response to visible distress, is more cohesive, more resilient, more likely to survive. There is also something worth considering about what triggers human tears that does not trigger them in other animals. You do not only cry when you are sad, you cry at music, at beauty, at justice unexpectedly delivered, at reunions after long separations, at the end of a film where a fictional character achieves something that costs them everything. You cry at things that have no survival relevance whatsoever. A chimpanzee does not weep at a sunset. A wolf does not shed tears at a piece of music. Only you do this. And what this suggests is that human tears have been unmoored from their original function and recruited into something far broader. They have become the body's response to meaning itself, to the experience of something mattering so much that the ordinary channels of expression are not enough. When language fails, when gesture is insufficient, when the weight of a moment exceeds what the body can contain in silence, tears arrive. They are what happens when you feel something too large for words. Neurologist Antonio Damasio, who has spent decades studying the relationship between emotion and the body, describes emotions not as things that happen in the mind, but as physical states of the body that the mind then interprets. Crying, in this framework, is not the mind deciding to express sadness. It is the body already in a state of emotional activation, and tears are one of the physical signatures of that state, as real and as involuntary as a racing heart or a clenched stomach. You do not cry because you decided to express something. You cry because something already happened to you, deep in the biological machinery of your nervous system before you were aware of it. And perhaps that is the most important thing to understand about human tears. They are not a performance. They are not a weakness. They are not something to be managed or suppressed or apologized for. They are your body telling the truth in the oldest language it knows. They are the physical proof that something reached you, that something mattered enough to move the ancient machinery that sits beneath thought and language and social performance, that in this moment, for this reason, you are not able to pretend. Every time you cry, you are doing something no other animal on this planet can do. You are converting the interior weight of experience into something visible. You are making feeling into fact. You are proving without words and without choice that you were here, that you felt this, that it was real. The next time your eyes fill without warning, you do not need to look away. You do not need to apologize. You're doing something 200,000 years in the making. Something that kept your ancestors bonded when words were not yet enough. Something that still tells the people around you in the most honest signal the human body produces exactly what is true. You are not falling apart. You are, in the most ancient and precise sense, being human.